We're tackling today the common obstacles of when you start a recruitment business and how to successfully navigate those. We are looking also, just from a housekeeping point of view, lots of people will be on mute, that's just to keep the noise down, so we can go through what we've got as a short presentation, and then we've got plenty of time at the end here to talk to myself and ask the questions also to my panel that are joining me today. Our aim is to give you some top-level insight into the obstacles and some options and ideas here for how to ensure you have the best start for those that are considering the steps into becoming a recruitment business owner. So if I could introduce you to the panel today. So joining me today are two founders who are in the Recruitment Entrepreneur portfolio. Miranda, David, welcome, and thanks for joining today.
Hello.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
No problem. Thank you. And you guys will be sharing your successes, your challenges, and your journey to date, along with being available for questions at the end. So for all those attending, do save the questions, and we'll obviously tackle those post this short presentation. Miranda, would you like to give us a brief introduction to you and your business and the journey to date?
Yeah, sure. I'm the founder of a business called Group 8. We specialise in the legal sector and focus on senior executive search work, predominantly at partner level. So we work with a number of global firms, helping them to grow their businesses essentially. So via the acquisition of partners and essentially co-owners in those businesses. I started my career originally in the UK, spent some time in Australia where I set up my first business in 2004, and then moved to the Middle East, Singapore, and then joined the RE portfolio at the end of 2017. So I'm coming now into my 4th year of business.
Excellent, thank you very much. So plenty of experience to discuss here today. David, same question?
Yeah, so I've got maybe 18 years experience across, similar to Miranda, but in different sectors, middle management and senior appointments and search work, generally in the built environment, so construction, infrastructure and engineering. And I began my career, as I say, 18 years ago, working in a very sort of candidate marketing driven business. And from there went on to build a couple of recruitment businesses before working for myself for a number of years, and prior to starting that, joining the journey here with these guys in March last year and building a business which is again very much focused on senior and middle management appointments, but equally with the backing of RE, the temporary side of things as well.
Excellent, thanks David. I think we'll come back to that in terms of timings to set up a business and when might be a good time. Yeah. March last year was an interesting start. We'll come back to you on that one. Great, leads my introduction. I've got 20 years of experience working in recruitment and have built businesses in 5 separate markets: investment banking, hedge funds, accounting, finance, and finished off recruiting and education, and seen firsthand businesses grow, also being involved in that from inception all the way to running a business of over 200 billers. My role here at Recruitment Entrepreneur is to identify the investment opportunities and also respond to the investment requests we get from future entrepreneurs, either looking to start a business or those that have started a business looking to scale their business who want to achieve an exit event. And again, we're all available for questions towards the end. So let's kick off with our agenda for today. So when is the right time? So we'll be covering how to best prepare or assess it against particularly your own circumstances. We'll also be looking at options with and without capital and the impacts of those decisions, what to do to ensure you navigate the continual challenges, and looking at how to set yourself up to win when setting up. And then we'll get some more overview from Miranda and David on their journey and words of wisdom from those that have obviously been there, done it, and as you can see, still wearing the t-shirt of business owners. And then, as I said, we'll close today with hopefully plenty of time for questions from our audience. So let's look at the timing. The reality here is there's never going to be a perfect time to start a business. There are obviously factors that help, and we're looking at 4 key areas today. The first one being mindset, and this is really predominantly prior to obviously setting up, having a committed mental and physical sort of setup to get ready for being a business owner. It's very different environment to being an employee. The buck stops with you. There's lots of decisions to face that you wouldn't have faced before. You suddenly have to become an expert with many factors of marketing, finance, you name it. We'll cover some more of those off throughout today. But clearly having a plan or a business plan and a roadmap to what you're trying to achieve, whether it's over a time frame or a journey of phases, either way will help you set up and be mentally ready to get it moving. And on top of that, which we'll be looking up in more detail, is the support you can get in place. This comes in various guises, whether it's infrastructure support, mentorship support, or further than that, it might be investment support that can enable you to set up and put yourself onto the right foot for a successful start. The other aspect here, which is obviously critical, is experience. Having the technical skills, having the credibility in the market already, having a track record, utilizing network strengths that you already have will clearly set you in good stead to set up and win and obviously generate the type of GP and cash flow that you would expect to get the business lifted and to drive that business forward. Miranda, it might be worth cutting in here. What are your experiences of these two particular areas and how has it helped you grow your own business?
Yeah, look, I think there's never, as you say, necessarily a right time. Both of those things are really kind of interconnected. You know, I mean, fundamentally, running your own business is not for everyone, right? It's not something that everybody wants to do. Some people just want the security of being able to just kind of focus on delivery and get their salary every month and have no kind of ups and downs almost with it and have a bit more of a steady income stream. I think, you know, in terms of where I started, I got to a point where I've always kind of just been a little bit impatient in the sense of kind of wanting to go that step further than my years almost kind of allowed me to do. And so I think, you know, when I first set up, I knew my sector absolutely inside out. So, and I was passionate about my sector. So if I was passionate about it, it meant I was thirsty for knowledge. If I was thirsty for knowledge, it meant that I generally would be able to stand out from other competitors in the market because I really kind of knew what I was talking about. So I think you've almost got to reach that stage where you're just feeling a little bit frustrated and almost impatient probably in your current environment where you're thinking, I can do this for myself. That said, I think there's also a lot that you don't anticipate in terms of that kind of startup phase. So, I mean, these two factors, I think that mindset and experience are almost like you've just got to be in that right space, you know, in terms of that minimum level of experience and also that right mindset to have the confidence to go out and, you know, set up on your own. Yeah,
great advice there. Thanks, Miranda. And, you know, onto that, I guess also is about market conditions. I mean, interesting year we've just been through for everybody in all its guises. I mean, 2021, and I'm sure many might echo this, but the vaccine rollout, restrictions being lifted, you know, the market has definitely got light at the end of the tunnel this year. And those industry sectors that were impacted through 2020 in particularly are going to bounce back or already bouncing back. Businesses throughout have planned for growth last year. It was all put on hold. There's been a great deal of pent-up energy that continue to effectively happen. And also those growth plans they had are already showing in Q1 that they're coming to fruition. And we're seeing that particularly in our portfolio with much higher interview activity at 64% up already on Q4. The candidate registrations are also increasing across the market. And the reality is it moved from a job dependent market to what effectively is now going to become a candidate demand market in a matter of a few months. And H2 will without question move to another war for talent again, giving recruiters the opportunity to grow. So setting up, unless you're setting up in hospitality or aviation, a lot of sectors are recovering. And whilst there's, you know, even from a CIPD view and some figures they've released recently, you can already see even from recruitment businesses themselves are looking to grow their own businesses with their own hiring. And over half of those in the market are indicating that they'll be doing that throughout 2021. I think it's also worth mentioning, you know, whilst it's a UK-centric type focus here, that international businesses or recruitment businesses in particular that operate internationally, the factors of COVID restrictions on in-country, lockdowns, or even travel restrictions at the moment, still limiting some markets on the ability to transition these candidates from one country to another. However, markets are open, already showing strong hiring plans and high job flow. So overall, frankly, it's an optimistic market to enter into as a business owner. And then I guess the final point here is more about timings. You know, one of the things that people don't often realize is how to navigate restricted covenants. If you come to employment, you know, ultimately, how are you going to set your business up with a network you already have, but ultimately you've been operating under the employment roof, is how do you plan for your first 3-6 months, whatever that covenant looks like, and ensure that you don't entangle yourself in a legal battle before you set up. So that is a key area to consider. Not to mention, where we see businesses really fly from inception is where they've already got work in progress. So, you know, what clients could they trade with on day one? Going in with job flow, going in with candidate activity is a great way to start. And David, look, you've already alluded to it. You started in probably the finest month of 2020. Would you want to talk us through how that's challenges you faced and how that's stood you in good stead for 2021?
Yeah, well, certainly an interesting time to start. And prior to obviously joining in March last year, I worked for myself. So a lot of the back office stuff I was doing directly. So whether there be a legal issue or a payment issue or marketing or whatever it might be, these are bits and pieces that I'd have to do. And when you work with RE in the way that I'm working with these guys, you've got the back office support there that manage all of that for you, which from a timing perspective gives you everything you need to just focus on growing the business. So you can just do your job. You can speak to people every day. You can talk to clients, make sure you're present and that you're in everyone's view, so that when the market does bounce back, you get those opportunities. And that's been pretty critical to building a new business that I've developed, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later as well, Alex.
Superb. Okay, we'll come back to that. Thank you. Well, let's move on then to do you need capital to set up? I'm showing you guys here. I mean, ultimately, this is not an exhaustive list, but you know, right from limited company setup, laptop, terms of business, invoice credit control, building websites of various, whether they're landing pages or fully functioning websites, wireframe websites, all the way to marketing support. But I mean, this is not an exhaustive list. You know, job advertising, license, GDPR, whether it's actually governance, whatever those things are, as a business owner, you'll have to face them. Now, the first point here is, you know, minimum needs. You know, there are people that set up and quite rightly can actually get on quite well with a limited company, a laptop, a phone, a LinkedIn basic license, and a landing page. And that, and effectively all alongside obviously some terms of business, can get you trading. Although what it won't do is support you in the areas where you'll still face credit control issues, legal issues that will come up, terms of business adjustments. You know, you might be looking at marketing or pitching for business where you need collateral. All those things will come along. But also, you know, you as an owner will be tackling those. So you can look to partially outsource to give you the freedom and time. Where there are no ticks, effectively it's time you'll still be consuming. And because of outsourcing, could cost as little as £300. You know, there is some impacts on GP, for example, if you use a factoring business to look after your payroll. But ultimately, again, the cash flow here doesn't need to be high, but the reality is what you spend is what you'll get. You'll still need to dedicate time to sourcing this outsourcing and also spending time managing it. So further to that, you could look at a fully outsourced model. And the reality of fully outsourced functions of support are that they're there to take all the heavy lifting out of effectively your day-to-day. You can spend more time with clients and candidates and ultimately spend more time billing GP and growing your business. So let's take a look at some of the examples of that. For example, for us, Recruitment Entrepreneur, we support in various formats, full joint ventures, you know, where on average we dedicate and working capital into the business of between 180 and 250,000 of investment. And that allows entrepreneurs to scale quickly. Or our alternatives are in the market where actually you get full infrastructure support, no need for capital, but ultimately you might be paying for that as and when you bill. And again, that is a service we offer through RE Flex, which again, other investors offer. There are options on the market. So I guess, David, you've seen both sides of this working for yourself, as you've mentioned. Now in a joint venture with Full Sport, what difference has this made to you, both positive and negative?
I don't necessarily think there's anything negative from it. I think if anything, it's more learning. So from my perspective, I view it all as positive. I mean, if you look at my background, it's 18 years in permanent recruitment, appointing middle management and senior professionals right up to CEO level. So I've never been a contract recruiter, and I've never done it previously. But with the backing that I have and all the systems that we have in place, it allows me to provide that services. So in essence, because of the pandemic, people don't like to recruit heavy hitting people. I've leveraged that network that's been built over those 18 years to find opportunities on the contract side. And with all the systems we've got in place, I mean, that's now up to maybe 70 contractors or so over the course of the last 3 to 4 months. And that's going to continue to build. So, so certainly from a positive point of view, you've just got everything from a system perspective that allows you to just focus on getting a job done and building your business.
Great stuff. Miranda, have you any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I've done it both ways. So I initially kind of started up my first business in Sydney, literally back bedroom, phone, laptop, 1 month's wages in my bank account. And do you need capital to set up? You always need capital to set up, because what you don't think about is the amount of time that it might take to win that first client, to make that first, secure that first opportunity, secure that first placement, and then get paid. And all of those things are probably going to take you at least a minimum of 3 to 4 months before you actually kind of get some money in the bank, unless you're kind of actually literally already up and running and you're just kind of smoothing in and you've already got your revenue kind of coming in. So you will always need capital to set up, and never underestimate what it's actually going to cost. But at the same time, I think what RE does, quite rightly, as David said, or any investor would do, is essentially just take some of that weight off, so that, for example, from month 1, you're always going to get your regular income that you need to actually just pay the bills, and you can then just get on with actually kind of focusing on building the business, building the revenue streams, building the client relationships, and you've got that infrastructure behind you. So both ways to do it. A lot of that depends on speed. And how quickly you want to do it, and also to what degree you need to scale to achieve the purpose of the business.
Yeah, super. Well, while we're on that subject, then let's look at the investor route. I think, look, if we've covered off where we are now, you can go it alone, money in the bank, and obviously, with that, obviously with minimal infrastructure, partially outsourcing to third parties, various functions is a possibility. You also have the investor route, which is often not a considered route, and the market options vary. Investors have very different goals in backing entrepreneurs or business, and I think the key is to find one that is aligned to your own goals. And again, whether that's just capital support, that might be a requirement. With that also comes with guidance and know-how, which is something particularly useful, because ultimately money's one thing. Having been there, done it before, and having people around you to help you scale and build that business is obviously another very huge added value. And then on top of that, infrastructure. So there are various offers in the market with Recruitment Entrepreneur. All 3 of these things are added to the pot, and ultimately support the businesses wholeheartedly to get to an end point. And the end point for Recruitment Entrepreneur, for example, is that we are an exit vehicle. So for business owners that want to achieve an exit in the recruitment market, that's exactly what we do in a joint venture model, or we offer effectively infrastructure support and some management support for those lifestyle businesses. So there are 2 options from us and various options in the market that you can go to. I mean, Miranda, you've obviously chosen the investor route now. What benefits have you seen in the business and the result of this decision?
I think you have to think carefully about it. But for me, I went through, the first business that I set up. I then had to deal with the global financial crisis in 2008. And I think a lot of the time when you think about a business, you only think about kind of the positive things that you're going to build, the purpose of the business, the difference in the market that you're going to make, the impact. You're all about the innovation and the excitement. But what you don't think about is almost the unexpected. So you don't think about the fact that around the corner is going to be the next global financial crisis, or as we've all experienced over the last 12 months, is going to be COVID. And it's those aspects where, for me, I navigated that on my own, and it was incredibly stressful. And I took, you know, it was a lot of personal toll that I took in relation to kind of doing that on my own, and also a huge financial impact as well. You know, if you're faced with a situation where you've suddenly got to make a number of people redundant, and it's all on you, and it's your own cash and it's your own business, that's quite a scary place to be. Whereas I think, you know, the benefit, if I look at the last 12 months with Recruitment Entrepreneur, and I'm sure David would probably agree with this, given he was just starting his business in this year, you've just got people to pick up the phone to and say, what do I do? You know, I think this might be the impact. You've got that business partner. Make no mistake about it, an investor is not after just being your strategic business partner. They are ultimately also looking at your revenues and helping you kind of make sure that you achieve that profitability. But in that sense, you've both got the same, you know, you've both got the same agenda and you're aligned. So for me, it's that kind of level of extra support if or when things go wrong, or just if you're trying to second guess something. It's the guidance and the mentoring that I actually think is the most powerful part of it.
Excellent, thank you. Well, let's look at then some other areas here. So setting yourself up to win. So whatever routes you might be looking to take. I'd like to start off actually just giving you a picture of the UK market for those that, I mean, we all know there's lots of recruiters in the UK. It's a very saturated market. I mean, there are over 44,000 active recruitment businesses operating in the UK, and you could probably times that by 3 in terms of actually headcount operating. Now, fewer than half of these startups make it to their 5th year, and there's various reasons for that. But ultimately, also, when you look at businesses that are, you know, in many ways, why people start their own business, they want to have a successful, whether it's a successful lifestyle, I should say, but also those that want to scale a business. You know, fewer than 27% of that total pool ever make it to a headcount of post 10. So it just shows you the difficulties of scaling a recruitment business in particular. And there are some common pitfalls that we've looked at and that founders have experienced in the early days of setting up and running their business. So I guess breaking some of these down, too focused on delivery, not on growth. It's a key issue where, you know, ultimately you might set yourself up with a few clients, they deliver a lot of good business to you, but ultimately those taps may turn off one day, and actually having spent no time trying to deliver further on a good client pool will leave you obviously stuck. Now, outsourcing specific skills and investing in infrastructure around you can dedicate and leave you time to allow you to obviously build those client pools, build your business. Stagnant businesses obviously relate to that, but also having, you know, quarterly business plans, helping you forecast and see the wood from the trees about how you're going to get the cash flow moving into your business is obviously a critical factor. It goes back to the original business plan we discussed as an important stepping stone to getting it moving, but revisiting that continually and planning and navigating, frankly, the challenges and bumps that the market throws at you is obviously part and parcel of that. I think also in terms of, you know, people who've not necessarily managed teams before that might want to start a business, it doesn't mean you can't start a business without question, but, you know, there are often decisions you're faced with that you haven't faced before, and potentially having someone to bounce that off, whether it's a co-founder that you set up with, whether it's a mentor that you have in the market, or whether it's an investor or somebody that you know that's obviously got business acumen that can support you through some of these, or quite frankly, having the experience around you of a marketeer or someone in finance often will give you the leg up you need to obviously counter some of the challenges that you'll face. If we then look at some of the other factors, taking ownership, you know, you're effectively going to be the accountable to yourself. You need to set targets, you need to stick to them. The weeks can fly by without you noticing and you being on delivery. Sometimes ultimately that will impact your results. But again, you know, giving yourself time to be able to look up, the head above the parapet's a common term, but actually pulling yourself away from delivery and setting yourself time to actually take ownership over the direction and the decisions you need to make to take the business forward is critical. And we've already alluded to it. Attracting talent is obviously, without question, one of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest reasons actually why many don't scale to past 10. But attracting talent in the market for your own business is also a huge challenge. You know, why do people want to come and work from you? What is your clear employee value proposition? You know, what's your vision for the employees? How are you going to talent attract those past maybe your own networks? But ultimately, the reality here is that, why are they going to join? What is the journey like for them? Is there career ladders and so on? So that is going to be one of the biggest areas where, if you decide to scale or decide to start, is how you're going to attract those people to help you grow. And I guess finally, time again to drive your new business. It's about building not necessarily a strong brand here, but it's a critical factor. What is absolutely categoric is you can't be the only person doing it. It's not about just you being on the end of the phone. Having a strong brand presence, having a marketing strategy around it, using technology that's available in the market to help you build networks and strength and often future business is going to be absolutely critical to ensuring that you get a business moving forward. Any additional thoughts there, David and Miranda?
David, do you want to go first, or?
Not as such from me. I think all the reasons why I've joined kind of adds value to all of that, Alex. Because as you'll appreciate, all the systems that are in place, etc., it just allows anyone coming into the business or any talent to be integrated seamlessly. It's very simplistic, and on the taking ownership, ultimately everyone is responsible for their own success, aren't they? So if you've got the right platform to build off, then that's hopefully 90% of the battle won. Yeah.
And Miranda, where have you seen the biggest impact across these areas, and how have you?
I think if I think about when I was, running my own business without investor input, that accountability is a really big thing, because when you're on your own, and I did it pretty much for 9-10 years, and during that period, you're not necessarily as an individual actually professionally developing, you're just delivering, and the next brief comes in and you deliver that, and then you go out and win more business. So you're just constantly chasing your tail. You just don't have the time to take that step back and think, actually, am I working on the most profitable work? Am I working towards my business plan? I'm actually building what I set out to build. So I think that element of, when you just having that, being able to take that accountability and having somebody constantly asking you, why are you doing that? Is that the right thing for you? And it probably, 90% of the time it probably is, but it just makes you ask yourself that question. So again, it's that kind of mentoring and coaching. And because it's not your own business when you get an investor, because ultimately you're building the business together, it almost stops you going ahead and just doing your own thing, without actually second guessing it and checking it, because you can't, because you are in business with a business partner, especially in terms of the big stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I'd say.
Right, thank you. And David, what about, what would be your best advice, I guess, to someone setting up a business tomorrow to ensure success in some of these areas?
It's a great question, Alex. It's there's a lot to that question as well. Ultimately, you've got to really give it thought in terms of what you want your business to look like, the particular areas that you want to specialize in, maybe what an ideal client looks like, the type of companies you want to work with, and then you've got to sort of work backwards from that and think about your end goal as well and how you achieve that, and look at all the different support mechanisms you'll need in place to get there. And for me, that's obviously why I'm working with Alex and RE, because all those bits and pieces that I need to achieve having a business which is recognised for its expertise in the niches that I operate in, it's already moving towards that, and we're doing work with new clients that we've not dealt with before. I've learned new skills from a contract point of view. Never done that previously, but obviously with the endorsement of the board, they gave me the green light to go ahead with all of that. And just on that, I've even had workshops with the group chief executive and sat down with him, who's obviously comes from a contracting background, and talked through best practice, all the bits and pieces I'd need to understand to approach that particular market. So I suppose it's just echoing the points of what Miranda said in terms of that support network being there. If you need to get an understanding or an insight from someone who's been there and done it and been through 4 recessions and overcome them, and all the bits and pieces that you need to navigate the current market.
Yeah. I can tell you categorically what I wouldn't do, and now both past it. What I wouldn't do is I wouldn't just go and get an investor. There's no point, because fundamentally you need the benefit of something like an RE or, you know, other vehicles that might be similar out there, is that it's smart money. It's people who have deep investor experience themselves in terms of actually running and building these sorts of businesses. So they can talk from real life experience. So it's, you know, I think a lot of people think of investment as just money, whereas I think the difference that we've probably experienced at RE is it is that smart money.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Well, look, why don't we continue that? David, do you want to give us some insight into, you know, you've obviously given some insight, I say, where we're up to now. What's next for you? What are the plans for this year?
So I think the plans for this year, I mean, number one, having established a contract desk and getting that up to a fairly good size of headcount now, that gives a constant stream of GP into the business, which allows you to, as Miranda said, step back a bit more and not necessarily take your foot off the gas, but just be a bit more strategic in terms of how you want to grow the business and where you want to plan to develop it. And the key things for me for this year is to continue driving this contract side as we come out of the pandemic, but equally to drive the permanent side as well, because both areas are within a market that I specialise in, which in reality is structural steel orientated, as well as the senior search stuff more across infrastructure. And then it's sort of the exciting prospects of adding more headcount in and thinking about additional markets that we're going to go into and all that kind of good stuff. So it's it's going to be an interesting year. Hopefully more positive than starting the pandemic, at least anyway.
Sure it will be. And Miranda, you've obviously given us some insight to your challenges and the two businesses you've had. What are your plans for 2021?
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, the biggest challenge I had actually was that I wanted to do something a bit different and innovative in the legal market, because it's a sector that's going through massive change, and I wanted to come up with a different business model. That took a little bit longer to take off than I actually hoped it would. So to a certain extent, you know, our group CEO turned around to me the other day and said, you've almost got to imagine you're starting this business today, which is actually a really smart thing to do every couple of years, you know, to go back to the drawing board and say, you know, I'm actually building what I set out to build. Have I achieved that? Or actually, is it going in a different direction? And now I need to kind of embrace that and embrace the transformation, you know, particularly in light of what's happened with COVID, you know, as David says, opportunities that you can take out of that as well. So for us, it's really just continuing to deliver to our core clients, you know, and do it bigger, better, and make a really big impact in the legal market. But beyond that, I think what we're really looking to do, and I know David's already doing this as well, is really look under the RE portfolio. You know, you've got, what, 19, I think, different businesses now under the portfolio. To essentially, where are the synergies within that portfolio? I mean, there's a huge amount of opportunity in terms of cross-pollination selling, and also in terms of combining forces and really making a bigger impact. You know, I think you can make an impact as one individual, you know, or a couple of individuals in your business. You can make a much bigger impact if you go and try and help a business to grow in multiple areas. So that's something that we're really looking at doing. And as part of that, looking at launching in Dublin with one of the group partners in the portfolio, and also looking at one of the other portfolio partners that's got strong capability in transformation and change. Yes,
well, some really exciting times for both of you this year. So great, thanks for sharing that. Well, look, I'm sure I haven't asked all the questions our audience may want to ask us today, or have the answer to. So why don't we move on to some Q&A? Feel free to raise the virtual hand on the floor. The panel is yours. Who's got the first question?
Hi, Alex. I'll jump in and ask the first one. Firstly, thanks. That's a great presentation, really informative. So, I mean, you guys have touched on kind of how the investment's not just about money. Can you kind of go through all the other support that you would get?
Sure, I can take that one. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's not about money. As actually Miranda's alluded to, it's about know-how. If you're talking specifically about Recruitment Entrepreneur, ultimately what happens overnight from partnering with an investor such as us, we only ever invest in recruitment businesses, is you get 22 effectively new business partners to the founder, all with expertise in specific functions. So whether it's marketing, legal, whether it's finance for both, you know, managing your own company accounts or actually the infrastructure outside of it. You also get front office support, which, you know, both David and Miranda have alluded to being as important. But ultimately, it's, you know, tactical and strategic support to help you enable to execute your own business plans. So, you know, the business plan is what an investor buys into. And of course, it's the person. And it's actually how those people work together to enable them to achieve that plan. So, you know, it's I guess an IP which, you know, you can't effectively buy on the market unless you've got that network. But ultimately, that's what we do. We enable those businesses to scale by taking the heavy lifting out of some of the administration from this and helping them get into market and be successful. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Great stuff. Any more questions? Someone asking a question there? I could just barely hear it.
This would be directed towards David. David, earlier you mentioned kind of choosing what an ideal client looks like. I was wondering, when you kind of started out, what was your business development strategy, and how did you build that bank of clients as a sort of a one-man band starting out?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, like anything, I mean, the first point of any sort of developing relationship is to make sure people know who you are. The background I come from is actually very candidate marketing driven. So typically when I BD, what I generally tend to use, unless we're looking at projects and we're putting bid documents together for large scale campaigns, I go through the process of meeting and interviewing senior professionals and understanding really the concept of what value they can bring to a business, and then leveraging the network or finding out in my network who are the right people to talk to regarding that individual. And typically with some of the people that I deal with, which could be on boards for some of the biggest contractors or engineering firms in the UK and in the world, that I'll be going after the chief executives. And really what you do then is, when you've got an opportunity to have a conversation with those individuals, that's when you take your stall out as to why you should be someone they should be working with.
Great stuff, thank you.
Does that answer it? There was one route for the BD, rather.
Any more questions? I mean, has anyone here got any specific experience or a particular circumstance they want to talk through and ask the panel?
Yes.
Excellent.
Hi, my name is Micah. I'm considering setting up a hiring agency here in Costa Rica. I know that right now, there is not a hiring partner for the area that I'm looking at, mainly for the cruise ship industries and things like that. But I would like a little bit of an advice of who can I reach out for some more information when it comes to who I need to contact when it comes to the cruise lines and things like that. So I have quite an interesting project that would actually allow me not just to, now that the cruise ship market is about to blow back out, and this is a good time. This is actually a great opportunity to start helping out and getting the right staff out there.
Okay, yeah, well, it's certainly an interesting area. I didn't know that cruise ship recruitment actually existed until today, so thanks for sharing that. I'll be frank, it might be worth taking your details and we'll follow up, but certainly I mean, I've never dealt with any recruitment businesses in Costa Rica. It's nice to have you here today, I have to say, but ultimately getting contacts for you from an investment point of view, not sure, but we could look into that. If your question was around how do you get into the organizations to help you recruit into that,
yes,
more about networking. I mean, it might be worth, Miranda, I don't know if you want to pick up on this, is how would you tackle getting to the owners of where they might be obviously in charge of recruiting for their cruise ships?
Yeah, God, it's not my area of specialism, but just using some kind of tin tack recruiter techniques, I would literally draw up a target list of all of the cruise line businesses, companies.
I got that.
Research all of their senior executive teams, try and find who's in either human resources or responsible for hiring. I certainly wouldn't email purely human resources, because human resources have different functions within different businesses. So some are more kind of management of their existing people rather than recruitment of new people. And I would probably go in fairly close to the top and talk about what I was looking to build and see if there was, first of all, a market for that before kind of going down the path of actually building it. So I'd probably reach and test my market first, almost do it as if I was doing a little bit of market analysis. You know, and literally Google would be my best friend. I think that's
a nice free source.
Hey, can I just jump in there? Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. I've got specific experience of working with cruise ship companies, so I might be able to help Maker.
Well, there you go. There you go. Free network.
My biggest client's a cruise ship company.
Wow.
Headquartered here in Geneva. So happy to help out. If it's on the crew side of things, I can give some advice. I mean, I wouldn't want to give managerial roles away, but if it's on the crew side of things, which I think from what Maker said it probably is, I'm more than happy to help out.
Is that what you do, James? Is that what, do you recruit in that sector?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
Get in touch, drop me a message on LinkedIn and we can organize a Zoom or something.
Okay.
Excellent. Great stuff. Any more questions? Any more experiences to share?
I'm particularly interested about the mentoring side of things. I'm launching a recruitment or another recruitment business here in Switzerland, and I've been through kind of the pain barrier that you've explained there, where I concentrated far too heavily on delivery previously, and things kind of fell over this time last year because of COVID. And I really wasn't concentrating at all. I think I was just about starting to look into strategizing and looking at new clients, etc., and where I could take it, and didn't, and kind of lost that opportunity, and it's been on hold for a year. So I'm interested in that mentoring and that strategy side of things. And any tips, any more light you could shine on that, really?
Yeah, where to get it, or what type of
I suppose both. Yeah.
Miranda, I've cut you off there. You were gonna.
No, that's all right. I was going to say, I mean, I think if you're almost wanting to know what level of support would you get from somebody at RE, for example, I think what I've found is that fundamentally it's the pillars of building a successful business, full stop, irrespective of almost then whether it's in recruitment and irrespective of what sector it's in, are fairly solidly kind of aligned. So, David, is in construction and the built environment. He would have done exactly the same things in setting up his business as I did in mine, in terms of at the beginning, in terms of kind of building those kind of pillars out. So I think what you'd find in somewhere like RE, for example, is a level of kind of broad understanding of just the right things to do and the right steps to take in terms of making sure that you don't make those same mistakes again. Because just because you've made them, there's automatic kind of thought process of, I won't make them again because I've made them once now, so I'll avoid that. I've been there, done that, and it's not necessarily always true, because it's really easy, I think, when you're running your own business to essentially go where the revenue is. So it's really easy to get caught in that kind of delivery trap again. I think from a mentoring perspective, what you get is, certainly people like Alex and the group CEO and also the COO have worked across so many different sectors that what they don't know, they become a specialist in very quickly when it comes to kind of sector specific advice. But in terms of just the core pillars of running that business, you've got somebody to help you actually build out that plan, question it, and give you that kind of real budget planning, revenue build, product that you probably wouldn't necessarily do on your own, I think.
I could add two things to that, actually. Because not only does it help you guide to some decisions, but there's a lot of professional development that comes from anyone that you work with that ultimately has been there, done it, or has got more years experience, because ultimately all from even different markets. And I mean, my biggest takeaway, I'm a fairly rare breed in recruitment, where I've worked across so many different markets. Normally you're very niche. It's the right way forward. Sector specialisms create certainly bigger traction, survive tougher times. But the reality also is that learning from somebody that's been in different markets, actually different markets do things in very specific ways sometimes, and actually you can take how it might work in, for example, an education market, finance, where they've never done it before, and it works. So I guess that getting a different perspective from people with much wider experience around you, then, you know, will certainly add value to you and help you make the right decisions. Hopefully that's helped.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Pleasure. Do we have any more questions?
Yes, Will Johns from London Global Network Recruitment Ltd.
I will.
I'm doing fine, thanks. I've just come towards it, like at the end of it, I think. So if I'm asking a question that you've covered before, I do apologize.
All right.
But how nervous are you guys in the recruitment industry with coming at the end of, you know, pandemic? What are recruiters or employers nervous about with obviously the new way of working now, working from home or working from offices? Has anything changed, or do you see changes coming down the line? Obviously, I'm very new into the recruitment, so I'm very nervous, but you may be able to calm me down, hopefully.
Well, I guess, look, firstly, it's you're employed, are you, Will?
No, actually, I've just been made redundant at the beginning of March. And during this pandemic, I've just decided to jump onto the recruitment industry, an idea that I've had for a very long time. You can find me or my company on gnr-app.com. Okay,
thank you. But firstly, you know, if someone who's, you know, you shouldn't be nervous, I think, from a point of view of market. We did update, and there's some market overview. We'll share the slides after this, but the reality is, you know, recruitment, which can be very boom and bust, and we've discussed today 3 major recessions that some of us have been through. The reality, it adds, you know, a boost, you know, when it's in its boom stage, you know, recruiters capitalize on that. So coming out of a pandemic with a better year ahead will, without question, you know, add some great value to those that are setting up and also those that are already in business. I guess from a point of view of how that shaped businesses, everyone's making individual choices, and particularly within our own portfolio. I mean, Miranda and David, I'm sure you'll comment on this, but, you know, I guess for the work from home type opportunities, or whether the choices are otherwise, will actually start to move the market around in terms of how, you know, what type of employer people want to work for. So, you know, I guess that, you know, the reality is there are forward-thinking businesses out there, and even in our own portfolio, we've had CEOs make already the choice that they'll never work in an office again. You know, they proved that working from home works. You know, and I've seen many businesses where actually, I guess the output, the productivity of individuals is often higher when people have more flexibility. So hopefully that tackled some of those areas. I don't know, Miranda, David, if you want to add to that in any way.
Yeah, I mean, I would say you can, out of every single crisis, genuinely does come opportunity. You know, you only need to look at how many of the UK's businesses have pivoted, and a really brave move for you to kind of go and now start on your own, and good on you for doing that. You know, having been made redundant is a great opportunity, great time to go and seize that and take the risk. I think that the world of work has forever changed in terms of, we were already starting to move to more of a remote culture. I think now it's completely transformed. So we've accelerated forward probably 10 years, I would imagine, in terms of kind of the way of working. Again, with that, as Alex said, it's just going to come opportunity because it will come movement. I think the last 12 months, a lot of people forget, you know, whatever role that you've been in, I think a lot of people have just thought about life and how their role fits into their life. And I think with that naturally just comes attrition. And with attrition and movement comes opportunity in terms of recruitment. I think that a lot of businesses have scaled back on their internal recruitment teams, which was kind of probably one of the biggest challenges that the recruitment industry and people like us see is the internal resourcing capabilities and teams. That's been scaled back now, and there's going to be a bigger movement towards people realizing that actually they want to stick to their knitting, and they don't want to necessarily build an internal recruitment business. They actually want to just kind of stick to the core of what they actually do. So I think there'll be more opportunity for recruitment businesses. Again, as long as you kind of have a specific point of view, and you take that point of view in the sense of, you know, you stick to the direction and the niche that you're in. Certainly for us, I mean, I'm in the legal sector. It's one of those counter-cyclical sectors, you know, that when times are tough, they're litigating, and when times are good, they're doing deals. So you know, I guess our sector is, and when there's high levels of regulation that come out, they're even busier, you know, and with GDPR and IR35 and all these things coming out, that creates a more heavily regulated environment. So, you know, I personally, if I was going to launch a business, I'd launch it now. I'd say it was the absolute best time to be doing it in terms of where we are on the growth curve in terms of recruitment. I
agree with Miranda on that. I think I'd like to start there rather than last year in March. The market is, there's nothing to be nervous about, in my opinion, Will. I think just echoing what Miranda said there, there's lots of people being made redundant rather. There's lots of businesses that are down on headcount. There's lots of talent acquisition teams that no longer exist. There's lots of recruiters that are no longer in the market. And all that does is create a lot of opportunity. And the reality is, that's, as Alex said, it's beginning to translate now in terms of interviews, in terms of live jobs. I'm seeing that every day with the clients that I'm talking to. So echoing what Miranda says there, I think it's actually a really good time to start a business at the moment.
Thank you very much. I'm calm now.
Good. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Great stuff. We've probably got time for one more question. Has anything got outstanding they'd like to ask the panel or I today? No, it seems like a wrap.
Well, I'll jump in and ask a second one if you don't mind.
Go ahead, yeah.
So kind of in a bit of a similar position to Will. So COVID's made me rethink my career choices at the moment, and I feel like kind of with my network, recruitment would be an easy sidestep, but I don't have that track record that you were kind of talking about at the beginning, the stuff that you need to set up with. What would your advice be on that? Like, where would be the best place to go to get your experience?
Good question. I think, firstly, rewinding a bit, one of the things that I have seen as a success is people who haven't got recruitment experience is actually from an industry background becoming a recruiter in the industry they're an expert in. So take, for example, you know, you've been working in advertising agencies, you know, you've actually become quite senior in that, you've got a good network of that. Actually turning your hand to recruitment, as often I have seen it where people have been very successful with that. I mean, recruitment's not rocket science, but it is inherently difficult to, you know, to ultimately grow a business within it, but also, you know, manage your time, because it's ultimately time you spend that's for free in many cases, unless you're doing retained work, as I know Miranda and David both do. I think when it comes to, you know, no experience, not much market knowledge on that, and actually, you know, how could you enter the market? There are firms, there are recruitment businesses in the UK that take on people with no experience, you know, that might be commercial, have some business acumen, good business developers, ultimately who, you know, will train you up and give you, I guess, the grounding and footing you would need to understand, you know, how to become a recruiter, would give you an opening to a market that would enable you to start to build a network. And ultimately from there, you know, you may want to decide to take that forward and build your own business from it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would kind of go and almost set up a business straight from cold without that experience. And even if it means you've got to take a couple of years of almost like a step back to then take kind of that leap forward. I've got a really good example, you know, a guy in my business actually was, you know, a 20-year qualified lawyer. And it's taken him, you know, and we say that recruitment isn't a rocket science, but we often say that because we're so used to doing it and we're so used to living it and breathing it.
That point, yeah.
And I think, you know, it's taken him, for example, you know, a real year to absolutely be able to say, I know exactly what I'm doing now. I can fly, I know what, you know, and really now. So, but he probably had to almost take a lateral step or a bit of a step back to then be able to take that kind of step forward. And I don't think he would have necessarily gone and set up his own business straight from scratch. So yeah, I would say get the experience first in that area before you set up.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Miranda. Good. All right. Well, look, you know, I hope today was a positive session for everyone, that you got some good information. We are going to share the slides, and also there'll be some follow-ups available for anyone who wants to talk more specifically about setting up a business, or if you're in obviously a business already and like to look at how you'd scale that. There'll be some contact details to book in time with me over the next week or in the future. And I hope today hasn't put anyone off starting a business, because if it has, and I guess like the question from Danielle We've got 22 portfolio businesses all set for growth this year, so opportunities to join even within the portfolio are available. So do get in touch with us if that's the case. So it leaves me to say thank you to my guests, Miranda, David. Thank you very much for your time today and your contribution.
Thanks for your time too, Alex.
Pleasure. And look, please keep an eye out and follow us on Recruitment Entrepreneur for further events and any market insights. And hopefully we've helped you today with some of the decision-making opportunities ahead of you. So appreciate you joining, and take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.